everyone's got their kid eyes on for the first time in a long time, in a long time. I can't think of the last thing that sparked this much creativity out of everybody. Now, let's just say the system takes it a step further and it says, I've put all those items into your shopping cart. That shopping cart can be picked up in 2 hours. Go ahead and preheat your oven right now. Right. And that's more AI native. Where should I go eat tonight? And it's going to say, you want spicy? You want sour? Answer a couple questions. Boom. Here's an answer for you. I didn't have to sort, didn't have to filter. You met me where I was at. And that was really the thesis behind this thing.
Welcome to Artificial Insights, where we talk to leaders and thinkers in AI about how to do AI right. I'm your host, Daniel Maneri, and this is Season 4. Here, we sit down every other Friday with people who build things with and write things about AI, and talk to them about what they do and why they do it. Today, I'm joined by Alex Maier. Alex has come from a non-traditional background for a tech startup, starting in textiles and physical goods. He's worked with large brands like Porsche and Audi. Now, Alex is at OnWater, a tech platform for water-based recreation. Alex, there's a question that's on everyone's mind with a podcast like this, and it's, Alex, are you an AI?
Am I an AI? If you hear me use the word gem at least 5 times within 2 sentences, then you can declare me as an AI.
Is that
Yeah.
your code word?
Yeah. I found that the first
Yeah.
3 times I used Google Gemini, it's like everything was defined as being a gem.
Nice. That's awesome. And could you just start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name's Alex Maier. I'm head of marketing and product with a rec tech application called OnWater. OnWater is the de facto platform for water-based recreation. We build mobile apps as well as databases that actually tie the disparate data that exists in the world around water-based recreation, be it fishing, paddle sports, etc., into one cohesive platform that allows users to be able to discover, plan, do, and relive and analyze those experiences on the water. Something that's unique about what we do is the fact that we don't just build utility, but we actually build an ecosystem, and the ecosystem ties together things like safety, observation, and protecting the places that we are essentially driving more users to go enjoy, which is a key part of the why of what we do. For me, my background is with product creation and marketing. Prior to being here, I was with a company called Alex Maps. A lot of you might be familiar with them. Prior to that was leading the global expansion charge of the Nike swimwear category as the head of marketing. I've worked with the Porsche and Audi brands. I worked with a lot of textile startups earlier in my career. Learned how to use Juki sewing machines and build textile prototypes that I, shipped off overseas places and ran go-to-market and brand campaigns and everything of the such to get companies from 0 to 1. And now I'm blessed to be in the outdoor rec space, matching my B2C career, marketing and product creation career with the digital tech that is up and coming. And thus we're here to talk about how that's meshing with AI.
Yeah, it sounds like you went from being super hands-on in a physical product space to something that's a lot more digital. Like, how did you make that?
It was really a pursuit of passions. I mean, that sounds really cliche. For me, fast cars and the egos attached was obnoxious. I said, no more of that. I want to get into sports, outdoor, health and wellness industries. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest here in the US, we're blessed with having great outdoor activities. I'm a downhill mountain biker. I'm a elk hunter. I'm a fisherman. I camp. I do all the things. And for me, I wanted to get closer to that. And so the opportunity presented itself to lead the Nike swimwear category of marketing. Tropical places and swimwear was only fun for so long. It wasn't truly a true passion of mine. And then I had the opportunity to help Onyx Maps launch their human-powered app, which is called Onyx Backcountry, as well as the suite of apps that was called the Adventure Projects. A lot of you might be familiar with Mountain Project, Trail Running Project, Hiking Project, etc. And essentially bringing that app system to market. I then had the opportunity and was stolen away to join OnWater. It was a really cool move to be able to get in with a true startup team where grit and perseverance is what, pays. And I've been here for the last, 2.5 years. Yeah, I think it's a hallmark of going from tech, tangible goods, and then realizing the benefit that when you layer digital on top of that, what you can do. So yeah, definitely bring a lot of things from my past world into the current world and vice versa.
As someone who essentially goes on a lake once a year when I'm at some camp, what exactly is the purpose of OnWater? You said it's for outdoor recreation. I think you've mentioned before that was fishing, and like, how does it tie all those things together? And what do
Yeah.
you do with it?
So, and I'm just going to use the numbers in the United States because it's our beachhead right now. But you look at the total addressable market, which means essentially like how many people do the thing per year. In the US alone, you have close to 60 million anglers in the US, and you have roughly 40 million paddlers in the United States as well. And it's like jointly, that's 100 million, right? People who recreate on the water outside of boating, outside of surfing, outside of a lot of the other ancillary water based activities. And, in terms of building a product and addressing the market need, the primary need is where do I go? You say you're going to go once a year. Well, you probably want to make the most of where you're going to go and not get into a situation to where you're like, oh, there's no water in this lake, or oh, wow, the river's so high, or oh, geez, there's blue green algae issue. I don't want to go here. Or wait, this is like class 5 rapid. I'm not going to do this. So what we do is we build a platform that brings in all the relevant information. It's conditions information for the water. It's information from state and federal agencies. It's information from government weather websites like NOAA and others. And then we layer on top of that a lot of our own community's information, and we source, user generated content. And we bring all of this information, the regulations, the permitting that you need, like all these things that actually can be perceived to people as barriers to entry. And what we really try and do ultimately is just remove those barriers. We try and make it really easy for anybody at any time to be able to get on the water safely, ethically, and to have, we optimize for time on water, get you out on the water. Success for us is that we got you on the water. Like real success for us is that we got you out on the water again and again. And then, as we look, to our children's, futures, that hopefully we're doing the right thing right now with a lot of our partners that we work with to make sure that we're protecting those places, which means doing things safely so that we don't get things closed down, or, doing things in an ethical way, or, conservation forward way to where we're protecting these places. We're following the principles of keep fish wet, leave no trace, et cetera.
So it sounds like it's significantly more complicated than like a running tracking app. And you can even get information that I wouldn't have considered as someone who's not a professional in one of these sports or hasn't done a lot of rapids or anything like that. How does AI fit into that? And how did you get into AI yourself?
I mean, gosh, that sounds like such a funny question because it was like just yesterday that I feel like I got into AI, or AI got into me, or whatever you want to call it. I am not AI, Jim. I think it's around, as most product and most innovations are, they're around convenience and solving problems. And until AI came around, you didn't know you had the problem that search engines wasted a lot of your time. I used to pat myself on the back, and I've got, my own award set on the wall of being one of the best people to like, you know, thoroughly research something or find some of the nitty grit out there, whether I'm trying to work on my truck or I'm trying to research the best thing here or figure out what people said over here. And you'd spend hours researching, digesting, consuming, Google search, right? A lot of companies would optimize for all that. And now what you have is a complete turn on its head to where it's helping you solve problems faster. And I think what we saw is that as we all have started to play with this, and I think you and I talked about this, Daniel, in a different podcast recently, but you put on these child eyes in what this is, right? And you look at it like you're a 5-year-old, like my 5-year-old, and you start asking questions like, what if, right? You start experimenting, what if, or what do you think? Or what if I did this? Or what do you think about that? Can you crunch this number? Can you look at that spreadsheet? And you start realizing, you start figuring out like how you can use this tool to solve problems for yourself. And then you go and extrapolate that farther and say, well, how can these tools start solving problems for our customers? How do we can start using these tools to meet our users where they're at to solve their problems? So really, to answer your question of like how we did it is, my own personal use of it, my team's own personal use of these tools, and us being curious, like a 5-year-old saying, hey, what if? What if? And I said, cool, what if? Let's try it. Let's test it. Let's see. Like pressure test it. Let's see if this works. And we started seeing the light. We started figuring out the nuances. We started figuring out, things where the systems can go awry, where things can go bad. And, it was through that process that we've discovered, wow, okay, there are ways that we can now bring this into the world. And what's happening so fast right now is the rapid adoption of AI, and now turning into from just adoption to an expectation. People don't want to have to go onto Amazon and sift through 500 reviews to make a decision on what they need. I mean, you already see what Amazon's doing to summarize those things. But now you can ask Rufus, I think is its name. You can say, hey, does this fit this model or that thing? Can it address this? Will it solve this problem that I have? And it's surfacing those things to where you're bypassing even the summaries because you're wanting your specific question and your specific problem answered. And I think that's where it's been great for that.
Is there a particular what if that excited your team?
I think the biggest what if that excited our team was, this is kind of counter, what if they didn't need our app? Right? Like,
How did you
right?
pitch
Like,
that
what
one?
if they did not need our product? And what I mean by that is, if we did our best to bring all these disparate data sources together to build the weather reports, build, all the map layers and the journaling and, bringing these routes into the product and allowing discovery to happen as it always has, you go to say, let's just say Google Maps, you say, I want a restaurant. You're going to go to a geographic area. You're going to see the list view. You're going to see the map view. You're going to see pins on the map. You're going to see stacked ranks based on filters or sort criteria. And then you're going to kind of deduce down what restaurant we're going to go eat at. And mind you, you'll never solve the problem of, you and your wife asking the question of what do you want to eat tonight? But if Google could solve that, it'd be great. But what people are now looking at is like, that's the old way of discovery, right? That's the old way of solving the problem of where do I go? And now what you're seeing is someone can go into, let's just say Google Gemini, and then you can ask, where should I go eat tonight? And it's going to say, you want spicy? You want sour? Or you want, what do you want? Answer a couple questions. Boom. Here's an answer for you. I didn't have to sort, didn't have to filter. You met me where I was at. And that was really the thesis behind this thing. Do you even need our product? Should the starting point be that traditional means of discovery of answering your questions? What knot do I tie? What gear do I use? What bait do I use? What's the right kind of PFD for this kind of whitewater run, et cetera. And we said, we already have this data and we can stitch this together and bring it to our users. But then, we talk about AI assisted, which is what we talked about to this point versus AI native, is we now say, okay, we've solved your problem. Now let's help you make your endeavor actionable. Let's give you this information, but make it actionable. And I think that's where a lot of good companies, and going back to what we talked about, like a lot of good marketers and product marketers are going to see this shift where you move from just providing the output and then allowing the user to do what they want to do with it to taking it that step further. And again, like I would say Google's done a great job of this to where, you can book a reservation once you find that restaurant. And then once you book that reservation, they're going to call for you. Then they're going to send you the reminder. And then you're going to tell you on your Google Maps, hey, it's time to go leave. Like essentially we're creating this world of convenience for better, for worse, but essentially you're meeting everyone where they're at. And in terms of building that AI native experience, what we've done is when you ask, hey, where should I go fishing this weekend? We're going to give you the places to go. We're going to give you the conditions to consider. We're going to give you the gear to consider to bring. We're going to tell you if there's anything that is necessary to know. There's a blue-green algae bloom right now in the lake. Maybe don't consider going and doing this right now. We're going to give you that information, but then we're going to go and say, hey, here are those places. Here are the directions to go get there. We're going to link you to the actual components and features and functionality of the product itself that allows you to then get sticky within our product, right? And it's going to provide you that tactical utility. So before we had to meet users, we had to try and figure out and triangulate where they were at, right? We'd ask the question, why did you download this app today? They'd say, I want to monitor fishing conditions. I want to find paddling routes to go paddle. I want to track my paddling adventures. I want to track the fish that I catch. I want to have the system tell me how long my fish are. Okay, cool. We send you down this path and then we hope that you discover the other things. Whereas now you can come in and you can literally ask the products the question and say, where should I fish today? And we'll give you that answer. We can ask you can ask the questions like, should I go, are the conditions right to go fish this river today? Fish a river I fish all the time. Yes or no? And it's going to give you that output and help you make it actionable. So that answers the question.
And you used a really interesting term of AI assisted, and you compared that to
Yeah.
AI native. Can you expand on that a little
Yeah.
bit?
So let's see if I can pull kind of a extrapolated idea here. So when we think about AI assisted, if I go on to, let's just say Chat GPT and I say, give me a recipe to cook tonight. I'm going to say, cool, chicken fettuccine Alfredo. Here's the ingredients. Here's what you need to know. Here's how you cook it. Cool. You've assisted me. Now, let's just say the system takes it a step further and it says, I've put all those items into your shopping cart. That shopping cart can be picked up in 2 hours. Go ahead and preheat your oven right now. And oh, by the way, you probably need to have these utensils, these cooking paraphernalia I've added that to your cart as well. And that's more AI native. It's taking it that step further in terms of just like giving me the information, but it's helping me make it actionable and it's built into the system. I think that's the key thing here is it's built into the system. It's not just a bolt-on thing. It's not just another information source that sits over here and then you got to do what you need to do with it, but it's helping you get from point A to point Z, not just from A to B to C to C, right?
Are there any examples that you see happening in current technology?
Oh man, you're starting to see hints of it everywhere, depending upon the platforms that you're using. You and I are both on LinkedIn a lot. You see it there where you can create a post and then it says, hey, can we help you make this post better? And then it brings you to that point where it says, hey, use AI to make this post better. Hey, use AI to improve this thing that you're already doing, right? And it's built into the system. It's built into the existing flows of what you're already going to do or doing. It's not just a siloed technology that lives over here on the shelf that you jump into and then jump out of all the time, but it's meeting you essentially where you're at. And it's providing tangible utility or value at every step of the way. The better the AI native system, the more times that it's helping you at every stage and every gate of the system. I think GPT just came out with their flagship agent functionality where, actually I used it the other day because I wanted to create some alerts for some certain keywords I'm monitoring when hits the news. And, I'm very familiar with using Google Alerts and it said, hey, using the agent function, it said, hey, do you want me to go ahead and just create those for you already? And just, allow me the access and the privacy access. I said, sure, done. Saved me a tremendous amount of time. That's an example of the AI native, right? As opposed to it just saying, hey, you should monitor these keywords. Okay, I'm going to go to the system and do that now.
So then it sounds like that the big difference would be if it's AI assisted, it's helping you do the Google search faster. But if it's AI native, it's actually setting up those triggers for you. It's doing at
It's
least
built
part of the
into the
work on
system.
your
I think that's
behalf.
the big key here is that it's built into the system. A lot of the AI use that's happening right now in the professional world is AI assisted, right? I have GPT open, I'm prompting it things, and then I'm coming over to here to do something else. I'm building a presentation, right? For hypothetically speaking, I'm building a presentation deck. I'm prompting GPT to help refine my copy points, my bullet points, whatever it is. And I'm taking that and doing that over here. Whereas you're starting to see now a lot of these systems become more AI native to where you're seeing AI built into the workflows that are already existing.
And where's OnWater at today?
Today, the cool thing is that by the time folks are listening to this podcast, you will have seen potentially the announcements that we're the first recreation app out there to bring AI native design into our products. Where that means is that we have really three different areas. More of it focused on the fishing side is because there's some nuances to dealing with fish. Whereas on the paddling side, it's a little bit more simple. But what you see in both of the products that we have for paddleways as well as on water fish is a chat. And this chatbot, you can ask it any question related to the topic at hand, be it fish or paddle. You can ask it, hey, is the lock saw, good to go paddle today? And those that know the lock saw, it is a product a river that is known for its white water. And depending upon the flows, depending upon, what the community is seeing, you're going to have drastically different experiences on that river. And sometimes it's not safe. Sometimes it's perfect and ideal. So you're going to be able to ask it and say, hey, should I go paddle the Waxaw today? You're going to be able to say, hey, should I go paddle and fish Timothy Lake today? And the system is going to give you that information. It's going to give you all the relevant context you need to know about regulations, about permits. And this is all data that we've already piped into the product, right? We're just stitching it all together for the user as opposed to them, even in our own product as it existed maybe right before we've launched these features, they'd have to go to the different parts of the area in the product and learn this and monitor this, turn on that alert to be able to go do the thing. And granted, it was a great system, but now we've exponentially increased, or I should say decreased that time to water, which is kind of a core metric for us, right? That much easier for you to make a decision on where should I go fish? Where should I go paddle? What do I need to know? Beyond that, there's actually some really cool stuff that isn't getting talked about a lot in the world of AI. But we at OnWater are unique in the situation that we have a patent, maybe one of the first few patents that is tied to AI that allows the identification of any species of fish and its makeup. So its coloring, its shape, the placement of its fins, its gills, its eyes, the size of the spots on the body, like all these different metrics. to be able to output a very scientifically accurate estimation of length as well as weight. You're going to see other systems out there that are doing similar things, but it's all based upon generalized formulas that exist in the world of biology as it relates to different fish species, right? Ratios of if the fish is this long, it's likely to be this weight. And what we've done is we've created a system with machine learning and AI that is giving highly accurate outputs for the length and weight of these fish. The cool thing about this is, besides the fact that we've completely killed the idea of a fish story, is that it's aiding in fisheries science. And what that means is that it's allowing now us to have our users become community scientists of sorts, to where every time that they catch a fish, whether they keep it or release it, we can track that and we can understand the size of fish, the abundance of those fish, and take it one step further. We're working with an organization called Wild Me, as well as Trout Unlimited and USGS, on a project called Trout Spotter. And that takes it even farther, to where there's some crazy cool technology that Wild Me's created that allows for facial recognition of animals. So they've done this in Africa for like lions and like zebras and jaguars and lizards, and they're able to track essentially the movement, to where they can see the movement, the mortality. And what we've done is, now when you take a photo of the fish, if that fish is, we can go blink, right? And we can see exactly, oh, this fish was caught here on this date and the conditions were this. It's caught here on this date and it was this, and it's grown in size, it's grown in weight. And imagine just all that unlock that we get for our fisheries biologists to be able to study these places and understand the movement of animals, fish, and make better policy decisions, make better conservation decisions, et cetera, on these things. So pretty cool stuff that we're able to do with AI.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to get over fish
Oh,
recognition.
I know. It doesn't roll off the tongue very well, but it's pretty cool. I used to think that all fish kind of look the same. And then when you unpack this with people that are way nerdier than I am, and way, smarter on biology and stuff, and then you start unpacking this, and like the uniqueness of the spots on a trout, right, are all unique to it, like a QR code. A wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I remember you mentioning as well, there was a lot of work that had to be done to bring all of these disparate data sources into the
Yeah.
product as well. So not just providing a nice AI native way to interact with everything, but pulling in those data sources. Is that an interesting story from your bit
I
as
mean,
well?
it is. I think one of the fallacies of the AI right now is that AI knows everything. And in actuality, it doesn't know everything. It knows a lot, and it's getting smarter by the day. But there's a lot of data sources that one, are proprietary, or are messy, or are in more analog formats, be it PDFs or papers that you need to scan. And there's just, it's right now, at least with AI, it's not to the point to where it can go super, super deep without a lot of prompting, a lot of focus. And arguably, just you would probably need to move outside of the generalized systems that we all have access to be able to get to the depths of the data. And what we've done is that we have all that information, right? We have the geospatial information, we have the fish species information, we have the paddling route data, and we have conditions information. And for these systems to triangulate that is a major amount of compute power to be able to do that. Whereas we're bringing in, with MCP connections to our data sets and tossing AI brains on top of it to connect all the dots, we're able to say, okay, focus in on this world of fishing, focus on this world of paddling, and then, surface this information. And so I think in terms of, defensibility of companies moving forward, I mean, we all know this, data is king. The more unique the data set you have, the bigger the moat you have. And so, there's a lot of work that goes into that, because just because you can get the data also doesn't mean that it's clean, that it's accurate, that it isn't duplicated, and so there's a lot of additional human power that is needed to make sure that it's accurate and that it is up to date, that you do have the latest information when it comes to regulations or to safety, because there are big consequences there. So the team has done a great job of making sure that our data practices in terms of aggregation, cleaning, deduplication, et cetera, all that stuff are fairly bulletproof. And then layering on top of that, just some of the nuances there of, if you're to say, hey, AI, convince me that I should go run this class 5 rapid. it'll convince you to go run that class 5 rapid, where we have to put a lot of our own stop
Yeah.
gaps into the system that say, no, Daniel, you should not go do this class 5 rapid. I don't care how much you think that you can just go send it. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into the back end of the data and manipulation and cleaning of it that, can someone out there and go replicate what we're doing? Absolutely. Right. We're a digital company. We're not building AI for the first time, but then even look at that, like how much it's grown and, accessibility of it and competitiveness is growing like wildfire.
Yeah. I do that too, because especially with outdoor recreation, it feels like there are cases where putting the wrong information in front of somebody could be hazardous. And doing that right is really important. You mentioned one other topic at the beginning that was something you were really
Mhm.
interested in talking about. It wasn't the AI native. What was the other topic?
I mean, there's AI native, but it's meeting customers where they're at, meeting users where they're at. I think is going to be it continues to be vitally important whether you're creating products or you're doing marketing. I mean, take a page out of OG sales guys books. You talk to, some of the best sales guys of 20 years ago, and the best thing they did was like need-based analysis. If you want to crack open that topic. And it was about meeting your customers where they're at. You say, hey, how's your day going? Oh, you're stressed. Oh man. Okay. I know where the mental state is. Cool. What's stressing you at work? Oh, I can't stand having to process these sheets this way. And you start unpacking all these different things. And it was all about meeting customers where they're at mentally, not necessarily physically, right? I think that's the key here is that a lot of marketers are always trying to meet their customers where they're at physically. What channels are they on so that we can intercept them? And, as I think about having, in my career, I wear product as well as marketing, and you think about the growth of a company, it's about meeting your customers where they're at. And ways that we're doing that in marketing now, even with AI, is using agentic systems that are customizing email communications. The day of batch and blast, even if you're batching with the best of intentions, is still not personalized. And so I think personalization is becoming more and more and more and more and more important. I know it's been talked about a lot. That's not a novel or new idea, but there's almost got to be a new word for what personalization means in this new agentic AI world, right? Really about what it means to meet somebody where they're at. When it comes to product creation and meeting people where they're at, it's like a lot like what we just talked about, right? Where you come into the product and you can just ask the question, right? Ask the question. We know instantly your level of experience. We understand your knowledge of something or lack thereof, just based upon the sentiment, the nuance, the words used, the candor that you have within that prompt or that query. And then beyond that, the actions you take. And then from that gives us more information, right? To then even more so meet you where you're at. So I really think, this idea of meeting people where they're at, whether it be marketing campaigns and go to market initiatives or product creation is vitally important, vitally important.
And so if I were to describe that, it sounds like AI enables personalization, whatever that means in the new form of
Yeah.
personalization. But AI allows you to take this person who's opened up the app one time or maybe 100 times and then know where they're at, what they're capable of, and what they might
Yeah.
want to do next.
So here's the crazy thing is AI didn't introduce that though, right? I think this is where I even go back to my early career working trade shows, grinding it through at really crummy trade shows in places you'd rather not be. And, your goal there is to like, okay, how much business did you write? And each person that walks down the aisle that comes by your booth and you look at them, right, you're going to profile them. What kind of shoes are they wearing? Did they shave today? Are they wearing cologne or perfume? Did they do their hair? What brands are they wearing? Do they come up to you straight on? Do they look you in the eye? Do they come to the side? Do they walk past you 3, 4 times before actually talking to you? Like all these things to better understand. And then it was on you to meet them where they're at, right? Someone comes up to you and they're just kind of down in the dumps. They got a bad day. Like, oh man, how's your day going? You kind of meet them where they're at. Someone comes up to you and says, whoa, what is this? You're like, let me tell you what this is. You match that level of intensity. You understand where they're coming at. Someone comes squared off to you, you square off to them, right? Someone comes up to you kind of sheepishly like this, you kind of do this to them. You meet them where they're at, right? I think that's the thing that AI has figured out, which is like why we think that, I don't know, that AI has reached this level of, what's the word?
Like sentience or
Yeah, yeah, sentient.
personal.
Like that. There's the beings that can be like humans, and I think it's a fallacy. I think it's just a matter of formulaic, right? It's formulaic. As I just described that, it's formulaic. And I think that's what it's figured out. But yeah, it's that level of, I mean, personalization, I mean, doesn't really that word doesn't do it justice. But yeah, it's just that level of meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. And I like that point too, where it feels like everything is new again
Mhm.
because of AI, but we haven't really moved away from the foundations, the things that people have done for decades to figure out what does
Right.
this person want and how should I interact with them. So that's a good
Yeah.
reminder. Thanks,
Yeah.
Alex. I'd like to ask a little bit about where do you see all of this going? Is there something in particular with OnWater, or are there other trends that you've seen? But what do you think? What do you think is next in
Oh
AI?
gosh, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this question. I probably ask you this question. I think you probably have better insights. Daniel, where is AI going? The thing that always hits for me, and I think this might be different for others, but I sit and I ponder what it's going to be like for my kids when they're my age and what AI is going to do for them. And I kind of take that thought and I rewind back to where we are today. And things that come to mind is like education, careers, purpose in life. There's a lot of things where I think AI is going to do a lot of good. I think there's a lot of places where I think AI is going to do a lot of bad. And, I tend to be optimistic and positive about where things are going to go. And I think generally the human race cares about the human race and that we're not going to drive ourselves into a digital grave per se. But where AI is going, I think you're going to see, you think that your kids right now are crazy for being able to use an iPhone. No, just wait. Like in a few years, the kids that are 5 from now that are growing up with AI. I mean, my kids are arguably growing up with AI, I guess, but you know, they're going to be thinking about the world in a completely different way. And I can't begin to imagine where AI is going to take that, where it's going to go. But creativity will blossom in positive and negative ways. You know, Case in point, I'll sit on a Saturday morning and be drinking my coffee and we watched a movie last night about robots and tigers that are Pokemon or whatever the thing is that they're into. And opening their world to say, what if you could create your own Pokemon or your own Transformer with just a few words? And I'll sit down with my son and he'd be like, okay, I want it to be red. I want it to have a shark sticker. I want it to have swords. It needs to be like a helicopter. I'm like, cool, let's build it. Right. And we build that. We see that. He's like, oh, this is so cool. He's like, Dad, can we make a coloring book out of that? I was like, sure, let's make a coloring book out of it. Right. And we turn into a coloring book. He sits down with crayons and he colors it with crayons. And then we like upload that back into AI and say, turn this into an actual video of it moving and doing its thing. Like, right. There's this whole new world of creativity and imagination that's going to be unlocked that's going to aid learning. It's going to aid the next realm of art. You're just going to see so much happen around creativity. Again, everyone's got their kid eyes on for the first time in a long time, in a long time. I can't think of the last thing that sparked this much creativity out of everybody. The last big movement that I could remember was like Pokemon Go got launched and every adult known to man, was out walking in the parks. We're like, whoa, this is crazy for physical, you know, physical exertion that people haven't had in years, like the world. I think you're gonna have some kind of renaissance of that within the world of creativity and learning. Beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll solve a lot of diseases. We'll probably create more diseases. I don't know. I think there's going to be good and bad to it. I worry about the political world and governments and just telling what is real, what is not, what is truth, what is a lie. I think you're going to see that AI is going to create a lot of skepticism in the world, even more than what we see today. I think that will inadvertently push a lot of us back to real one-on-one connection. There's actually a fantastic book that continues to be relevant since I first read it. What it's called, Who Can You Trust? I'm spacing on who writes it. I apologize to the author, but look it up. Who Can You Trust? And it talks about the evolution of trust, right? It goes back to medieval days where you came into my village and you didn't kill me. I didn't kill you, but you gave me some radishes and I gave you some bread and therefore we can trust each other, right? To where it evolved into this idea of institutional trust, right? You trust the government, you trust the kings and queens, you trust, your doctors, you trust your lawyers. And then you moved into this world of distributed trust. You trust strangers to drive you in their cars to the airport. Oh, wait, it's called Uber. 20 years ago, you're like, wait a second, I'm not going to go live in someone's house that I've never been in before. or trust someone to walk my dog, but now this idea of just distributed trust. And sure, I'm missing one of the different levels, but now what's happening is that all those trust systems have been breaking down. Trust in
Mm.
institution is all-time lows right now. Trust in distributed systems is also breaking down right now because with the age of AI, you don't know if that other person is real or not. Like the amount of LinkedIn
Mm.
messages I get from people that are fake salesmen blows my mind, you know? And so, no, okay, I want to be able to talk to you. I want to tell you a joke and see how you respond to it and see if you say the word gem 5 times. I need to be able to prove that you're a real person. I think what's happening is that we're going to go back to more of those medieval times of trust. You see a lot of
Mm.
this right now in the world of hiring and job seekers and, these HR teams that are trying to fill roles that you have AI talking to AI. People are using AI to create their resumes and then they have AI to vet those resumes. And then they have AI bots interviewing people that are answering questions with AI open on their laptops, right? Like it's crazy. And I think what it's going to go back to is like your work history. It's going to be, no more work projects, no more interviews. But does anyone recommend you? Do your professors recommend you? Do your past bosses recommend you? Do your friends and colleagues recommend you? Can they vouch that you're a real person? You know, do we all get, does the
Yeah.
verified badge now take on new meaning in this AI age to where,
Mm.
no, you've actually submitted a blood sample and you've got your own government issued verified badge online? I don't know, you know? So anyways, I digress.
Mm.
I think AI is going to take us in good and bad places. And I don't know, I'm excited to see where it is. And for those that aren't along for the ride, sorry, you're going to have to figure it out at some point.
I really appreciate the encouragement to put your kid eyes on. I sometimes get into the cynical mode, and then it should
Yeah.
be exciting. It should be something that you're like, wow, what if my drawing came to life? That's just awesome.
And as you just said that too, back to me, one of the things that is interesting too is that even when you have your kid eyes on now, as with your children into the world, you need to be skeptical about everything, right? You need to not have your kid eyes on, but your parent eyes on at the same time, right? You got to be able to
Mm.
go out there and be like, oh, this is neat and fun. Man, I could upload pictures of my whole family into AI and this is so cool. Look at this whole, it's fun. Oh, wait, I just now gave personal information to a system that I don't know what it is. Is that a good idea? And so you have to have that balance though.
Yeah, absolutely. Great reminder on both sides. Thank you, Alex. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or just how can we follow you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best. As long as you're not going to spam me with telling me that you can increase my follower count by 10,000 or that you're going to increase my sales trajectories or any of that stuff. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm open to talk on any topics related to things that I can talk on. And if not, then I can BS my way through anything else too. Happy to talk on anything, but yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. That's great. Check out if you're into any water-based activities, check out any of the products we create on water fish or paddleways. They're free to use. We don't require paid subscribers. There are paid tiers, but anyone can get out there. The mission that we have is paddling access and fishing access for all. And the idea is removing barriers and protecting our water resources for years to come.
I made this podcast because I want to be the person at the city gate to talk to every person coming in and out doing great things with AI and find out what and why, and then share the learnings with everyone else. It would mean a lot if you could share the episode with someone that you think would like it. And if you know someone who would be a great person for me to talk to, let me know. Please reach out to me at Daniel Maneri on LinkedIn, or shoot an email to daniel@maneri.house, which is Daniel@MANARY.HAUS. Thanks for listening.